Sean Diddy Combs will remain in jail until his sentencing. A judge made that decision yesterday after the jury released its mixed verdict. Combs was found guilty on the charges related to prostitution, but the jury declined to convict him of sex trafficking and racketeering. Those were the more severe offences. Jo-Anna Nieves is a criminal defence lawyer and founding attorney of Nieves Law and joins us now with more. Good morning to you, Jo-Anna. You know, the prosecution made such a big deal of the arrest of Sean Combs and this case against him. We all can think back to when his home was raided and they released images of a safe deposit box with all sorts of evidence. But in the end, he was only found guilty of prostitution. How did the prosecution fall short in terms of the most serious RICO charges?
Good morning. Absolutely. I think that where they fell short was getting the jury to understand this concept of an enterprise and the conspiracies that were going on within that enterprise. They had to show that Sean Combs and somebody else within the enterprise made these agreements and committed these acts. And we heard a lot about the people involved, but we didn't hear from many people, his chief of staff and the security. And I think ultimately, showing that this enterprise existed and people were complicit in these agreements is where they fell short on the racketeering charge. And then for sex trafficking, I think the defense really hammered in on these being like consensual relationships, long-term relationships that lasted for several years, despite these allegations of violent instances that occurred. The defense played videos over and over again that we didn't get to see, but I imagine showed that these victims that they put on the stand were willing participants. So ultimately, the jury probably felt that the prosecution fell short in showing that there was force and coercion when it looked like it was consensual, and even they had messages coordinating it on their own.
You know, any of these high stakes federal trials I've covered, the juries always take it seriously. I mean, they're taking time away from their lives, their jobs, and they really do look at the evidence and the instructions from the judge in front of them. So why do you think the prosecution didn't call the co-conspirators they alleged that Diddy was coordinating with? We heard a lot on the emotional side, but we didn't hear from the chief of staff, the chief of security. And the jury perhaps also wondered why they didn't hear from those individuals. What's your view?
I think it's a lingering question that, still puzzles many people. I mean, I would imagine that maybe these co-conspirators felt that or were advised that they may have some criminal liability as well and declined to testify and maybe took the fifth and pled the fifth. It doesn't mean that they could not have been subpoenaed and then, declined to answer testimony that would have been incriminating, for them. So I would imagine that the prosecution felt that they could prove their case without them and didn't want to muddy the waters. But I think it still left like this cloud of doubt and uncertainty in the jury's mind.
And they've got to convict beyond a reasonable doubt. And on those most serious charges, they just couldn't get there. Jo-Anna Nieves, we appreciate your insight. Thanks for joining us this morning from Oakland.